This conference will now be recorded.
Meditation, if I can. It's just seated in your chair. If you haven't meditated before, don't worry about it. It's more of a reflection. If you want to close your eyes, you can close your eyes or just soften your eyelids. And just begin by taking a few deeper breaths, inhaling, and get in touch with the sensation of breathing. And when you're exhaling, see if you can bring some attention to letting that out breath be released completely. Bring some awareness to the parts of your body that are making contact with anything. So your feet on the floor, your seat in the chair, back against the back of the chair perhaps, or your arms in the armrest. Let your attention linger with what's touching the ground or the chair, and that sensation of being grounded, being here and present. And follow this flow of the breath in, breath out. And on the breath in, I invite you to make contact with something, some aspect of your breath that feels spacious. What actually has some spaciousness? What do you feel expanding or getting bigger? Your lungs, your chest, your abdomen. Do you have that sensation? Then I'll also invite you to bring to mind a place that for you represents the feeling of spaciousness. That might be a place in nature, a place you've been to. If you'd like to, you can bring this image to mind of something that's spacious, a place that's spacious. And picturing yourself in this spacious place with as much visual and sensory information as you can bring to mind. Sounds, smells, images. And in this place, from this place of spaciousness, I just ask you to inquire of yourself a little bit, just a regular lunch hour that you're here for today. Can you tap into something a little bit deeper that allows you to choose to do this and find out about this and do this workshop or seminar as opposed to many other options that you might have had? So from this place of spaciousness, what was the curiosity? What was the intention? What is it that you aspire to for yourself that brought you here instead of many other things that you could have been doing with this time? Something that you wish for yourself. And just allow yourself to linger on that. And then bring your attention back to the sensation of breathing, breath in and breath out. Flow of the breath in, sense of expansion. The flow of the breath out, sense of grounding, being here and present. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Have a look around the room. Reconnect with the space. Maybe with some of your colleagues. Thank you. So I'm here today to talk about mindfulness. I do understand from a survey that was sent out some time ago that most people are interested in, and I'm sort of assuming if you're here, you're interested in how mindfulness can help you with some of these things, that clarity and focus, stress reduction. Welcome. Just a little bit about me. I am from the Mindfulness Clinic. Thank you. There we go. There's one more click. Whoops. Yeah, so I'm from the Mindfulness Clinic, which is a large psychology clinic just up the street from here. Our main office is just up the street. My name is Larissa Dill, and I'm trained in psychology, and I was the director at that clinic for a while. Now I'm sort of spreading the word a little bit more broadly when I can. And at this mindfulness clinic that's just up the street, we do individual psychotherapy. That's the bulk of what we do, is we offer people that are struggling with, specific difficulties that they need some help with, short-term or long-term. But then we also do a lot of this training, and these are some of the programs that we offer there. These are group training programs. And my specialty is the middle one, the mindful self-compassion. And then I teach that program. They're 8-week programs where people come and train for 2 hours. And sometimes I joke that when, people are taking these sorts of programs, we're in the business of putting ourselves out of business, right? Because if you do this kind of mental training, it's just a little bit like exercise, right? That you can prevent a lot of, more challenging kind of mental health issues down the road when you kind of participate in a lot of these mindfulness practices. So a little bit about what mindfulness is, just as a definition. Are some people are already practicing and doing some of the acts and those sorts of things. Is that right? Yeah. Does anybody want to kind of throw out what they've heard as their what mindfulness is? Does anybody want to take a stab at it? What you think it is, or what it is for you?
We used to do hot yoga, and it's just kind of like a grounding and getting away from the world. Kind of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it has something to do, when you say grounding, right, or even when we're in a yoga class, it definitely has something to do with this attention. Like, what are we doing with our attention, right? So it isn't always necessarily like a very formal meditation practice. It's more, one way of thinking about it is it's the intentional use of our attention, right? So we're being clear and aware about what we're paying attention to in the moment. So what we do know is that one of the things that can create some difficulty with kind of mental and emotional health is this kind of feeling of being on automatic pilot and having our thoughts kind of hijacked, right, in one direction or the other, either towards like negativity, which I'll talk about later. We have a little bit of a bias towards, or just like not feeling like we're kind of on a path or have a direction. And that was another one in the survey question that I sent out before. It seems like I'm getting the sense from surveys that I send out prior to these. One thing that people are really looking for is a sense of meaning and purpose and direction, right? That's one of the things that they would like mindfulness to be able to, or the contemplative, that we call it contemplative practices, like setting aside some time for reflection. People want to be a little bit clearer about that in their life. Is that sounding like a little nod? I don't know, or is that kind of sound reasonable? Yeah? Does it resonate? Okay. So mindfulness is the intentional use of attention. So that's what we were just doing in that guided meditation that I took you through, right? You were were not totally focused on exactly what I was saying every moment. But what you were doing, I presume many of you were kind of like, oh, my mind drifted away, I'm going to focus, I'm going to pay attention to this now. My mind drifted away, okay, well, all right, I'm here, I'm doing this now. What's she talking about? Right, so you were kind of sort of giving it a little bit of a guidance, giving your mind a little bit of guidance and being intentional about it. And that's a skill we all have access to. But it does take a little bit of training and practice. So what do we know about it? We know that mindfulness, like in addition to okay, the science. Okay, this guy here, there's a lot of science behind this. And this is Richard Davidson, and he's out of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So, I come from a psychology clinic where mindfulness is often used as part of like actual psychological treatment, but in fact, actually, we know that it can be super helpful just as a general well-being practice, and I think that's why people are coming to a lunch and learn like this today, right? And so they've actually tested it. They had a large biotech company And I'm not sure, it was a huge amount of people. It was something like 2,000 people, the employees. And I'm just going to take a look at my next bunch here. Yeah, so they actually put them through 8 weeks of mindfulness training, like similar to one of the courses that we offer at our clinic, 2 hours once a week. And what they did MRI, first of all, across the board from self-report, after 8 weeks, all of the employees reported a reduction in anxiety. Okay, so and it was significant. It wasn't just by chance. They also wanted to get some more objective measures of it besides the self-report, and they found from brain images that the parts of the brain that are associated with more kind of positive emotions, those are the ones that were kind of lighting up and strengthened. And they also found that people, you know, when you get the flu shot, you're building up antibodies to the flu. They had everybody got their regular flu shot, but then they tested the people that were in this course, and the people that were in the course actually built up even more of the immunity and antibodies to it. So it helps us at a really biological level. So actually, and all of these slides are available. You can kind of go back and look at it. But I really encourage you to go take a look at that centerforhealthyminds.org, because there's lots of exercises and questionnaires and some downloads for guided meditations. Okay? So thank you. Next, what's going on here? Okay, let's go back, and I'll tell you when to hit it. Okay, another thing that science has shown mindfulness can be super helpful with, because this is something that I know came up in the questionnaire, about focus, right? So about being able to kind of stay on task and not get distracted. So go ahead. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that flash again. It's a series of numbers, and I want you to, this is exactly like the study that was done with another group of people. There's a series of numbers. I want you to pick out what's not a number. Okay? What was not a number? Yeah? What was anybody, what? Sorry? D and Z. Okay, you guys are all good. You don't need me. So this, what this study did, it's a study about attentional blink. You can go ahead and switch to the next one. Yes, keep going. That's basically what happened. So they flashed all of those numbers at the people, but actually even double time that. And what they noticed is that if you've been a regular meditator, you're going to be able to catch that second number on a shorter distance. So it's like your kind of attention stays open, right? If you are, maybe, obviously you haven't been a regular meditator, but meditation helps you improve on that, catching that second one. Everybody can catch the first one, usually. But it's almost like, okay, I caught the first one, then you kind of blank out a little bit, right? Sorry?
Yes, because it looks like number 2.
Well, but I don't think it's specific that it's a D or a Z. It's more like they've done it with a lot of different variations. It's specifically about the timing and about how our attention blanks out, right? This is actually a similar sort of test that they use to kind of make an argument about why we shouldn't be using cell phones when we're driving, right? Because you kind of blank out on information once you kind of think you've got the relevant information. But we can train ourselves. I'm not going to say we can't train ourselves to drive with our cell phones. That's for sure not what mindfulness is meant to do. But we can train ourselves to have a little bit greater capacity to notice and pay attention to some of these details. Okay. So, and this is just a quote from Albert Einstein. Like, essentially, what's happening with mindfulness, what we're doing is we're training like very regular skills, right? Of observation and perception. It's a large part of what's happening. Okay. So mindfulness is a tool. Go ahead. And one more click. I think these are all going to come up. It's a tool that we all have access to. one of the, really, the very first one we have there is to develop greater awareness and clarity of our thoughts and emotions. And then it's also a tool that can help us create space in any given moment. And it's a tool that can help us formulate more measured responses in the moment. And it can help us express empathy and compassion and self-acceptance. You know, really, I find everything flows out of the first one. In practice, everything flows out of the first one. So the more we can kind of develop that, the better off we'll be. So timing like it's going to be, because I want to leave a little bit of time to practice. We're good. We got lots of time. Okay. So this business about, go ahead, we can switch to the next one. So we have these tricky brains. I'm going to see, we have tricky brains. Evolution has given us these tricky brains. We have essentially what is kind of our older brain that we have in common with all sorts of mammals, and it has to do with like our kind of our motives, our drives, our desires, not necessarily the stuff that we're completely conscious of. But then we also have this like really creative brain that comes up with great new ideas and problem solving and kind of externally focused. That's the stuff you need every day to do your job and get your grocery list done and all that kind of stuff. So we're not kind of dismissing it. But what happens is we do get a real interaction going on between the two of them. Okay? And sometimes we can't always tease out when our thoughts are feeding our negative emotions, or when our emotions are actually informing our thoughts. And so that's what we're doing when we're trying to kind of slow down the process a little bit. We're bringing a little bit of mindfulness to all of this, okay? And then we also want to be careful a little bit about the intention. I'll talk a little bit about this part afterwards. So let's come over to the next one. So clarity is essentially, you know, we want to be able to see where we're going, right? And we're doing the same thing with our internal landscape, right? When we're practicing mindfulness and bringing about this greater awareness of thoughts and emotions, we want to improve our resolution and the definition of what we can kind of be aware of in ourselves. So at a really, in terms of the psychological process, I mean, I'm showing you that example, but this is a little bit of what we do in something like a cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Is we sort of help people to pay attention to, you know, the difference between their thoughts and their emotions. So sometimes if we're in not such a great space, we're kind of, everything's jumbled up in our heads, like we're having some really negative thoughts and we're not feeling so great. But with a little bit of attention, this intentional use of attention, we can start to kind of breathe out, take some ease, get a little bit of clarity around it, and just see what's what. So it's not, one of the things sometimes I think what people, I'm going to work on this slide a little bit more for myself, but I think sometimes people have the impression in mindfulness that it's all about kind of just having positive emotions. And it's absolutely true that you will cultivate more positivity with practice of mindfulness. But sometimes mindfulness is about just being clear and aware about what's difficult and feeling like we can actually kind of cope with it, right? So we're not always kind of just jumping ahead to, you know, the positive interpretation of things if we haven't taken the time to sort of get clear, right? How's this working? Are there questions? So one way, I'm just thinking two different exercises that we can do. Really, one thing that is most important when we're trying to kind of breathe a little bit of space into things is to, you know, focus our attention in this deliberate way, kind of like what we did right at the beginning. So what I'm going to offer right now is for you to, if you're comfortable, to stand up, and we'll do another sort of brief guided meditation that involves some principles of, you know, focusing and directing our attention. Let's see where I can go. It's not really stuff. Are you guys going to see me okay? Okay? So one of the things that's really helpful is to actually kind of be in the body and to link the breath with movement, okay, in the most simple way, right? So we're going to pay attention to the breath, and we're going to take some very simple movements, okay, just letting the hands hang down. And like we were doing at the beginning, feel your feet for a minute and rock back and forth on the feet just slightly so you can be aware of how you're balanced. Eyes can be open or just gazing down at a spot. And take a moment to have some appreciation of this somewhat of a miracle that your feet are holding you. This small surface space holding and balancing your whole body. And give some gratitude, if you like, to the job they're doing. Right? Exhale completely and breathe down into the soles of your feet. And then inhale and take the shoulders up to the ears. And exhale and soften. Yeah. So a couple of times on your own breath cycle, see how precisely you can link the breath with the simple movement. So whatever rhythm I suggest may not be your breath rhythm. Find your own breath rhythm and connect the movement. So we can try another movement if you like. You can just raise the arms up to the ceiling with an inhale. And exhale, and release them down. Inhale, up, exhale. So you can do shoulders, you can do arms. Another option would be just simply to lean to one side. Take a few breaths here while you feel into the stretch in the neck, and coordinate the inhale with lifting the head back up to center. And coming to the other side. Take a few breaths there and have the sensation of a little bit of a release through the area of the neck. Coordinate the inhale, coming back up to center. And then if you want, you can just take one hand to the center of the chest or two hands to the center of the chest. And underneath the palms of the hands, see if you can make some contact with that feeling of the breath, and that rhythm of the breath. Here in the center of your chest, in the area of the heart space. And then release the hands back down and stretch or wiggle any little bit more that you'd like to. And then find your feet back again. So I'm just curious, specific question. When you were doing this, we started off, I asked you to pay attention to your feet, right? Okay. And then I asked you to do this. When you were doing this, were you thinking about your feet? Okay. All right. And when you were doing this, were you thinking about your feet? So it's a really simple example, but it's just this idea that our attention is like a spotlight, right? It's back to this idea of deliberate attention. We kind of put our attention on something by choice. And really, I would say, in some ways, all of mindfulness is about that, right? It's finding that choice. Go ahead, yeah.
So on this slide, the idea that we always have a choice about where we're going to focus.
Yeah.
Attention.
Yeah.
So when we're having a bad moment,
yeah.
all these things are going on.
Yeah.
Driving life.
Yeah.
So when you think that we're at that moment, if we can recognize that we're sort of out of mindfulness or out of peace, that we can say, oh, wait a minute, I'm choosing to be out of mindfulness, so I can choose instead to just go focus on today and ask myself what's going on right now.
Yeah. Honestly, sorry, what's your name?
Bonnie,
yeah. Honestly, I mean, that really is where it starts. It's like what's going, like there's this little bit of a breath out and what's going on right now, and it's a little bit of kind of a step back from it sort of approach to things. You know, I can't say that mindfulness is going to automatically fix a difficult situation, but it might give you a little bit more of an inner resource, right, to kind of not go off the handle or whatever it might be, right? Yeah, exactly. So if you're cut off in traffic, right? You know, it's like, and, you know, you don't want to kind of flip the bird to, you know, your boss. Turns out it's your boss. You know, you want to kind of, well, let's pause. How do I actually want to deal with this? Right? So, yeah. Another way, so I mean, I'm sort of demonstrating this here, but, you know, I kind of got you into mindfulness just by standing up, breath and movement coordinated, right? You're intentionally redirecting your attention, right? Another thing that you can do actually is just in the middle of the day just think about it, take out a piece of paper, think about a difficult situation. On one side of the paper, write down what the emotions are, right? So the emotions are, you know, angry, mad, happy, anxious. Those are emotion words. And then on the other side of the paper, write down what your actual thinking head interpretation is, right? She coughed because she was trying to cut me off in the meeting, or, you know, those are the interpretations, right? Or she shouldn't have done that, right? Those are the thinking bits. And it's not a question of whether or not you're right or wrong. A lot of the times they get into this, like, those thoughts may be accurate, they might not. The exercise here is kind of just breathing a little bit of space into the difference between emotions and thoughts, okay? Being right is usually one of those feelings we really like to have. We can't always get there. So, really we're getting better clarity and resolution. Anybody a Matrix fan here? Okay. The next one, so essentially what we're doing is we're creating a little bit of space and sometimes dodge what are the bullets otherwise. This next one has sound, and I'm afraid it's going to be too loud.
We'll try it.
Okay. Where is the volume here? Because I could probably just...
The volume.
Okay. Yeah, let's take it right down. Yeah, it's really loud on mine. There we go. Trigger warning. I should tell it.
So do I have to press play again?
Sorry?
Well, I think it's just...
Yeah, if anybody really doesn't want to see the gun violence from this scene, then should warn you. Yeah.
Oh.
But, yeah, go ahead, press play.
Trinity! Help!
So, is the metaphor working?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, I came up with this metaphor. Like, that's kind of what's happening, right? Like, we're just slowing things down enough that we can, you know, sort of dodge a bullet, right? And like life sends us lots of bullets, right? Maybe not quite as you know, deadly as these. Yeah. So, yeah, so this one here, this is a little bit back to, actually, you know what I want to see. Remember when I was saying, like, I can leave it there, it's fine. So remember I was saying, like, what mindfulness is a tool to help us create greater awareness, right? So that we can pause and have a more measured response in the moment. But it also helps us connect a little bit more to what's in our heart. And so there's a story about an elder grandfather who's teaching his young grandson about, you know, life lessons and stuff, and he says to his grandson, you know, I have two wolves in my heart. One of them is, you know, generous and kind and caretaking, and the other one is like angry and greedy and resentful. And the grandson, you know, looks to his grandfather and says, well, which one is going to win the battle? Which one will win the battle? And the grandfather says, the one that I see. Have you heard this story before? Yeah. Okay. And you know, actually, when I was presenting it here today, I realized I was being a little conscious myself of cultural appropriation. This is a little bit of an aside. You know, it's actually in a couple of different traditions. Like it's quoted as being part of like a First Nations tradition, Navajo, but it's in a couple of different traditions. So I wanted to make it a little bit more general, but I wasn't sure who to give credit for. But it's a lovely story, right? That the one that we feed is the one that will grow stronger and that will kind of win the war, so to speak. And so what we do, you know, in addition to being intentional about our attention in mindfulness, we're intentional about, you know, the types of feelings that we want to cultivate, and the types of, you know, feelings in connection with others and feelings towards ourselves that we want to cultivate. You know, there's a very famous meditator, researcher, Mathieu Ricard. He's got a TED Talk called The Happiest Man Alive. But he has a metaphor that, you know, it's not enough just to train attention, because a sniper can have really good, sharp, focused attention, right? It's what are you using the attention for? And sometimes I really like actually coming out to do these talks, because I think some of the people the organizations that are asking to learn more about mindfulness are usually organizations that are already kind of involved in you know, doing some really good stuff in the world, right? And I think, you know, you guys are working with this organization that's doing some really positive things. You're already kind of part of that, you know, cultivating and creating some good. So the other thing is that you want to, you know, think about that a little bit in terms of your own life, and mindfulness can kind of absolutely help you do this. So back when I was talking about that study at the beginning, that how, you know, the 2,000 or so employees that are in the biotech company, they showed measurable changes in the brain with the greater areas of positive emotion. What is an interesting quirk, evolutionary quirk about our brain is that we're actually a little bit more wired to pay attention to negative, right? So it's a survival thing. It's good, right? We can't give ourselves that much of a hard time. I mean, there's obviously individual variations, right? You might know somebody who's a little bit more negative than others, right? There's individual variations, but from an evolutionary standpoint, it actually suited us very well to be constantly kind of worried about where the next danger is coming from. And unfortunately, what's happened, you know, in one environment, in a very kind of historical environment, most of the threats were external, and we really did need to protect ourselves from them. But what's happened now is that we've controlled our environments quite well. The threats are actually internal now. The threats are the things that we say to ourselves about ourselves and predict about the future. So we can't always kind of get away from those threats in the same way we could, you know, before. We used to like run across the field and get back to the clan and hide out in the cave, right? That was dealt with. Right now, what it is it's the kind of inner voice sometimes that can be the threat more than anything else. So when we're intentional about our attention, there's a couple of things that we can do to try and counteract this, what's called negativity bias, right? And just a simple exercise as well is to just, you know, simply pause. There's a couple of different ways of doing it. Does anybody here do journaling or practice journaling? Yeah. So not everybody's down for journaling. That's fine. But even just pausing and thinking about something in your life that you appreciate, or just replaying it in your mind. Okay. Anybody want to just maybe kind of gaze down or close your eyes for a minute and see what comes up for you? Something about your life circumstances or your environment that you appreciate. And then I ask you to just reflect and think about an experience you might have recently had. So it doesn't have to be any great epic experience. It could be something simple that happened this morning. It could be a smile you shared with somebody. Play it out in your mind and notice whatever feelings, went along with it. And is there a positive influence in your life? A person, the past or the present, or spiritual figure that you appreciate as being a positive influence in your life? And now I'm going to ask you, is there something about yourself, quality about yourself that you appreciate? Let yourself appreciate that quality. And think about ways that you can bring that quality that you appreciate about yourself into the rest of your daily life, just today. Okay. Go ahead and open your eyes. What was that like? Calming? Okay.
It's hard.
Can I ask which part is hard?
I don't know, I just like thinking positively, I guess. I'm like, oh, what do I appreciate about myself? Not a whole lot.
Okay, it's sort of that is the question. I put the appreciate about yourself. Who found the appreciating something about themselves harder?
Apparently I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Often when I do that sort of a practice like this, it's appreciating something about yourself. Or sometimes I'll do a different version of the exercise. Can everybody think about something they don't like? Hands go up, right?
James, it's something that I found I really had to work on. Like, even a couple of years maybe ago, it would have been, I would have had the same response. And it's always the hardest thing to do, to find something positive for myself. But I don't know, you could see because
yeah.
I think it gets easier. I think there's less resistance I find in myself doing that the more that I try to practice.
Yeah.
I've had the same reaction
most
of my life.
Yeah. Bonnie's on to it. Like it's a practice thing. It's like any exercise that we do initially. It sort of feels awkward. I can't do it. It's hard. There's a lot more. If you want to do my self-compassion class, there's a lot more there about some of the reasons about why it can be difficult, but also just our negativity bias, just our tricky brains that evolution has given us, right? It's like, I can't think something positive of myself. What would happen if I did that? So I encourage you to give it a try. That's one thing. But you know what? If that's too distasteful, don't worry about it. Think about a person who's been a positive influence in your life, or life circumstances, or like a small thing that happened to you on the way to work, or that you're on your way out to do, or something that you appreciate. Anybody else have any other examples about how they do that maybe already? Gratitude practice is kind of buzzing all over the internet. People tried that?
Yeah, it's a great little book. I don't know what it's called. It's a mini book of someone years ago.
Yeah.
Just think of 3 things each day, each morning.
Yeah.
Gratitude.
Yeah, it might be. Gratitude practice is a very kind of common one. And the only thing I'll say is if you want to go off and kind of search it up a little bit, we know for sure from science a little bit of gratitude practice every day definitely helps to protect people from, more severe depression or mood difficulties. But there's also some specific ways of practicing it that include the mindfulness component, right? So, I could be thankful that I'm not in overdraft in my bank account, but it's not, it's a little bit deeper than that, right? We want to, what we want is to kind of try and connect to an actual experience, which is why I've thrown some of these ones up here, right? You can picture that person that you appreciate, or you know, you can think about these, you know, being in that circumstance, you know, if it's a cottage or a place in nature or something like that. You can actually picture it and experience it in a very kind of visceral way, like a body way, right? So those are the sorts of things we want to tap into a little bit for gratitude practices, right? Where it's an experiential is what it's called, right? Rewiring the brain. So the other thing that we know is really helpful that mindfulness can help us with, we get this thing, Matt Christian uses, there we go, is our research has sort of shown us that being able to connect to something that's bigger than ourselves is really important, and having a sense of meaning and purpose. So I did touch on this a little bit already. And so for some people that might be spirituality, it might be, you know, a sense of community, but being able to kind of step outside ourselves and feel like we're part of a bigger picture can be really important. You know, even just, it can be like part of your work environment, right? You know, like you sign up for like wellness committees, right, to get something like this going, right? In some ways, that can be an example of, you know, feeling like you're connected to kind of contributing and offering something back, right? It definitely has a really positive impact. We also know that people who, they did a lot of studies after 9/11, people who, you know, were less likely to, and in a lot of other types of studies like this, people that are able to recover from PTSD or where it doesn't turn into complex PTSD, or maybe are even protected from sort of PTSD, usually these are some of the main factors that they have in their life is like a feeling of a connection and community, and a feeling like that they can actually do something about the circumstance. Even if they can't fix it completely, the feeling like they've kind of got a bit of a mission and a purpose here to help out in some way. So that makes a really big difference in giving us resilience, right? Is community, and, you know, feeling like you can actually contribute in some way. I'm going to do another guided practice here, like around that theme, but I do just want to kind of tell you that, you know, to Bonnie's point, thank you. It really is about, you know, training our brain. You know, there's a lot of people out there, researchers out there right now that are saying, you know, in the 1950s, if you said to somebody, I'm going for a run, they would have laughed at you and said, well, what are you running for, the bus? You know, it's like, you know, the idea of kind of that regular fitness and physical activity was just like not heard of, right? In some ways, what we're seeing now is, you know, a lot of movement around what can we do to kind of support mental health and prevent, you know, some of the more difficult things that can show up, right? We need this kind of regular and consistent type of practice, just like we would do with exercise. Not always easy, right? And I like coming out and doing these kind of presentations because what I really want is to kind of throw out the idea that there's lots of kind of little ways of doing it, like tapping into it, right? I don't want people to think that, you know, you've got to carve out an hour every day in some special room with birds chirping and all that kind of stuff, right? It doesn't have to be like that. It just has to be keep coming back, keep giving it a shot, right? Not always easy. And it's also a little bit like athletic training in that sense that, you know, you have to kind of be a little precise. Like, okay, it's at this time of day. You know, you have to kind of stretch yourself a little bit. You have to repeat it a number of times. Sometimes it might be a little challenging to get back to it. And this is what athletes do when they're kind of, you know, building strength or muscles or trying to kind of, you know, get somewhere with their athletic performance. I don't want to say mindfulness is athletic performance, but there is that kind of little quality of discipline that we can really benefit from when we kind of incorporate it into our daily lives. So let's just do one more meditation, and then I'll open it up for questions very briefly. So this one here also is like a body-based meditation that, you know, is also one that you can kind of reliably, you know, fall back to in time of need or stress, okay? But the movement is simply this, right? If you want to join me, the other thing is it's completely voluntary. You don't have to kind of follow with the hand movements. You may. You don't even have to kind of listen to my voice, okay? You can connect to whatever you want to connect with, okay? But the movement is just simply a hand here, inhaling, and then a movement out, exhale. Try that a couple of times. Inhaling and exhaling. Okay, so just let your hand rest here on your chest for a moment. You can let your eyes close. And connect to senses warmth under the palm of your hand. I'll guide you through. When you breathe in, I want you to just feel that sense of expansion around the area of the heart. When you breathe out, just feeling a sense of releasing. Breathing in, feeling that sense of warmth. Breathing out. With your hand on the center of your chest, I want you to just open your eyes briefly for a moment. Have a look around. Keep your hand on your chest. Open your eyes briefly. Have a look around at your colleagues, at space, at the room. Maybe make eye contact with somebody, maybe not. And then let your eyes close again. With your hand on your chest, I want you to connect or reflect for a moment on this idea of our shared common humanity, that everybody sitting here in this room knows what it's like to feel happy, to feel sad. Everybody here in this room knows what it's like to have a setback or to feel on top of it. Everybody here in this room probably has some experience with loneliness or grief. Everybody here in this room has probably had some experience of celebration. Taking a deep breath into this sense of shared complexity. As you exhale, reach your arm out and send the warmth back out into the room. Acknowledging a shared experience. Inhale, putting your hand to your chest. Breathing into the complexity of shared human experience, and then exhale, sending that warmth back out. Positive wishes to others, going beyond the room. A few breath cycles here. Breathing into this shared human experience, and exhaling, breathing out positive, warm feelings for others here or outside this room. Rest your hand back on your chest. Open your eyes and have a look around again, connecting to the space in the room. Close your eyes one more time. Check in with your own experience here. Noticing any difference in how you feel. You can release the hand down. Open your eyes. Any noticings or observations of what that was like? You feel dizzy? Too much breathing? Too much oxygen? Yeah. Okay. You okay? Yeah. Anybody else noticing what it was like? Any comments?
I thought it felt good.
Yeah? Okay.
Connected to others in the room.
Yeah.
Positive energy.
Yeah. So that's that kind of fourth prong, really, about feeling a sense of connection, something bigger. So we started with the kind of attention piece of it, noticing the tricky brain that we are working with a lot of the time, and then setting an intention to sort of make it about something a little bit bigger than just ourselves. So it's a method, right? It's been kind of studied both in science and in ancient contemplative traditions. So just a few minutes here if there's any questions about anything. The clinic, any questions about mindfulness or anything that we talked about today? Yeah.
Have there been any studies or, the results, like sort of demonstrable results of it at the end of someone practicing these kinds of mindfulness, like there were measurable results?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the first study with the biotech engineers. There's been like quite a lot that have come since then. And it seems like they're often kind of measuring different things, right? Like they might measure like different aspects of well-being, like anxiety or depression. Immune response is actually really interesting. So oftentimes what they're doing is it's like an 8-week program or 6-week program, 2 hours once a week, go home and practice meditation on a day-to-day basis in between those classes, and then they'll do pre and post measures. So they'll kind of ask people a bunch of questions beforehand. In some cases, actually do brain imaging, right? Put them in an fMRI. And then at the end of the 8 weeks, they'll ask them a bunch more questions and look at the brain imaging again, or do some of that serum sampling for the immune response sort of stuff, which is very interesting. There's another one recently that's specifically about compassion practices. This just came out last year, specifically about doing these compassion practices, similar to what we were doing here with the common you met with this, right? Like positive feelings towards others. They've been studying that a little bit more closely now. And there is a more recent one that is demonstrating, has anybody heard of telomeres? Yeah, okay, telomeres are like the little taps on the end of our DNA strands, our chromosomes, and I think it's the shorter they are, the more we've aged, basically. And so actually they were able to find that you could actually sort of maintain telomere length by practicing some of the compassion meditations. So throw out your anti-aging cream. It's the new fountain of youth, right? The idea, but that by practicing some of these compassionate meditations on a regular basis, that's the other thing. They're kind of the research is focusing on how much, right, is enough, right? And the sort of consensus now is minimum 10 to 15, but several times a week really helps. It's the same thing they're trying to pin down with stuff like exercise, right? Does that answer your question? Yeah?
I'm guessing it could show up in organizations too. That's part of the track that.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, there are, so a lot of this, I should have given you another book. There is a book reference in the references. There's a book called Search Inside Yourself. It was done by Google, Chadman Chang, and I think he's called the Happy Guy. Anyways, engineer at Google, and he brought mindfulness to all of Google. And so they have their completely amazing in-house program now for everybody who works at Google. And they also took that training protocol now, and they do it out and around in the world to other companies as well. But they have done a lot of research, in the workplace to sort of demonstrate how it can it's beneficial. Practicing mindfulness is beneficial specifically for helping people develop greater emotional intelligence. Okay, and that's really what we were touching on. I've done that Google training. That's really what we were touching on here today, was that kind of developing more self-awareness, right? So that we can be more attuned to ourselves in the moment, have a more measured response, and then also have this kind of empathy towards others. The mindfulness and emotional intelligence thing is like really, linked, right? Mindfulness is a really strong underpinning for emotional intelligence, and so it's very kind of helpful in organizations as well, to, depending on what the objectives of the organization are. Yeah. Any others? So who's gonna go out, who's inspired? Yeah? Okay. What's the inspiration? What's the, I'm curious.
Good. I think we need to do. We did hot yoga for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think it's good, kind of training your focus and not letting all the negative.
Oh, sorry. Can you maybe speak to? There is like the labyrinth down in here. I don't know if people have noticed it, but I think that kind of goes along with mindfulness, or can be part of mindfulness.
Yeah, absolutely. You could be, you could have a mindfulness buddy, right? You know, like sometimes people have exercise buddies. So the labyrinth down there is, people often use them. You could use a labyrinth if you want, but you don't even necessarily need to use it. It's just about kind of mindful walking. So when we were doing this inhale and exhale, we were bringing deliberate mindful attention to the movements in the breath. And similarly, I'll encourage you all to do that when you leave here today. Practice mindful walking to wherever your next destination is. And it's just simple, like inhale, exhale, breath down, foot down, or feeling the sensations of the right foot. Inhale. It doesn't even have to necessarily, like I could be mindful walking right now. It doesn't have to be anything too formal or stiff. But if you choose to intentionally place your attention on the sensations of walking, right? And if you get distracted or if the brain gets hijacked, bring it back again. You know, for a specified period from here to, I don't know where you're going, your death, you can try that. Now the labyrinth would be kind of the evolution of that. If you wanted to have, like, carve out a little part of your day where you spend maybe 10 or 15 minutes, you know, there's a specific beginning and a specific end. So you would be challenging yourself a little bit, because in that time frame, your mind's going to wander off a lot of times. You can bring your attention back to those sensations of walking and just being present with it. But yeah, there you go. There are lots of opportunities. And there's lots of resources that we'll send out. I'm glad to hear you inspired. Like, I wanted to kind of get that conversation going a little bit, right? But I love to sort of come in and share this information, but I'm just curious, like, what'll kind of get it going and what'll help it to keep going for you. Maybe it's kind of connecting with a friend, or saying, okay, I want to try that labyrinth this week, or, you know, I'm going to kind of do a gratitude journal, or, you know, in the morning I'm going to stop and appreciate, you know, my walk to the bus, or something like that, you know. So try and come up with one idea, you know, that, you know, you can carry on for, you know, the rest of this week and maybe through the weekend. See what can get started for you. Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for attending. Thank you. We'll be sending out a feedback survey after this. Most of the attendees, I got most of the people that have, said yes, yeah. And as well, we'll have the slide deck, so if you want to look at any of these resources, there's other additional resources with apps and books and other things that you can look into to help out. So we'll be posting that as well onto our drive, and we'll send that out to everyone.
Thank you again for the fabulous.
Okay, thank you. Have a good week. Good weekend.